On July 1st, a group of protesters in Hong Kong laid siege to the Legislative Council, a building where laws and bills are discussed. Protesters broke through glass windows and roller shutters to storm and occupy the building. They hung banners with messages and painted graffiti on the walls. It was the most controversial action in the anti-extradition movement in Hong Kong, of which protesters have been known to be highly disciplined and peaceful. So why would a peaceful protest evolve into such an intense event?
因為我哋對呢個中國嘅法律係冇信心。
如果那說難聽點，如果他們條例通過，那就代表香港淪陷。
It all started from an amendment bill that was introduced to the Hong Kong legislature. It would allow the extradition of fugitives within Hong Kong's territory to China for trial. Whereas Hong Kong is ranked 16th out of 126 countries on the Rule of Law Index in 2019, China is ranked the 82nd. Many people protest against the bill in fear that the law would be abused by China to persecute dissidents and mark the end of the rule of law in Hong Kong. On June 6, more than 3,000 Hong Kong lawyers participated in a march to demonstrate their professional will against the bill. 3 days later, 1 million people went on the streets to demand the withdrawal of the bill. Despite the record-breaking numbers of protesters, the government decided to continue the second reading on June 12 as scheduled. In fear of the passing of the bill, a tenth of thousands of people, mostly students and youth, occupied roads around the Legislative Council on June 12. Protesters barricaded the roads with fences and water-filled barriers in an attempt to intervene the second reading meeting. They even set up shield walls with umbrellas to defend themselves from pepper spray. Despite the peaceful assembly, this was the government's response. More than 150 tear gas grenades were launched. Over 30 rounds of beanbag bullets were fired. Some were aimed to the heads of protesters. Countless batches from batons were landed on unarmed protesters. Shower of pepper spray was used on citizens who had already yielded. Journalists were also victims of the police brutality. In the evening, the Chief Executive Carrie Lam described the incident as a riot. This was the darkest day of this movement. 3 days later, Carrie Lam announced a suspension of the bill instead of a withdrawal. A 35-year-old man committed suicide as a protest for a complete withdrawal of the bill. More followed later on. Some were rescued, some were unfortunate. Enraged, desperate, Hong Kongers protest on the streets once again on June 60th. This time, over 2 million people, nearly one-third of the population, participated. Even though many of us were heartbroken, they still believe a peaceful demonstration can be effective. They still hope to move the government to regain their humanity. They are not rioters. They care about Hong Kong more than anyone else. They just want to see if the government would listen to them. But other than a plain meaningless apology, no demands from the protesters were addressed properly. They want more than a suspension. They want a complete withdrawal that guarantees the death of the bill. They knew that they must do something else. Therefore, on June 20, a large group of Hong Kongers declared escalating actions if the government does not provide a proper response to address the demands. Meanwhile, as the G20 meeting happened on June 27 and 28, Hong Kongers crowdfunded a total of $850,000 to place advertisement on 20 major newspapers around the world in order to put pressure on China. Although their voices was loud, the government hid behind the stage and remained silent for over 10 days. They tried. They have tried every lawful method to defend their rights, to hold their freedom tight. At that point, they had no other choice. All these led to what happened on July 1st, when a group of several hundred protesters voted to storm the Legislative Council.
It might look like chaos from what you have seen on the news. What you may have missed is that they paid for their drinks which were unguarded, they left historical relics unmoved,
They know their causes and consequences better than anyone else.
they know they could be charged and sentenced to serve 10 years in jail. 4 protesters even decided to stay in the chamber even though the police had set an evacuation deadline. Foreseeing they may have to stay until the end and sacrifice their life inside, some people wrote their testaments. A single father who decided to stay until the end left the following message to his children.
希望你哋好運啦，老豆俾唔到啲咩你哋睇下會唔會睇下老豆今日做咗啲咩，睇下會唔會對你嘅人生有啲參考。對錯我唔敢講，我驚你阿媽話我教錯你哋，但係你哋成熟咗啦，有自己嘅個人思想，你哋自己諗下啦。
However, the remaining groups of 100 protesters who had left earlier went back to grab the 4.
點解你哋會有呢個行動上嚟嘅？
因為我哋透過 Telegram 知道有4個議事會留低，所以我哋決定全部人一齊上嚟同佢哋一齊走。佢哋唔走，我哋都唔走，我哋擁佢哋一齊走。
咁但係其實而家已經好接近12點嘅死線㗎啦，咁你哋驚唔驚入到嚟係出唔翻去？
個個都好驚，但係仲驚聽日見唔到佢哋4個，所以我哋先一齊入嚟一齊走。
Most of the protesters are in their 20s. Some are even younger. The youngest arrested protesters is only 14 years old. They could have enjoyed their summer break from school with friends, but not to withstand the police brutality for weeks. Yet they went on the streets again and again and even occupied the legislature for the first time in history. Why do they have to do all these things? Why do they have to risk their future and even their lives just to protest against a bill like this? It is all because they want to protect our freedom and rights that the government is trying to rip off from us. They are not thugs. They are true Hong Kongers.